It's time for the TimeOut. Welcome everybody to this edition. We are joined by administrator, coach, player, one of the greatest fans here in the 242. And when I started off in this business back in 1997, he looked just like this. Jason Saunders, welcome to the TimeOut. And first question, where can I go to get the Fountain Dew? Because you're not aging at all. Look like you can still go in there, play and do everything. What is the secret?
But first, just to be saying thank you for having me on. I just wanted to also mention official as well, right? And I did play in the recent Bahama games, and I came tied for first in most aces in our 50th anniversary celebrating our independence. But let me say it's just hereditary. I had absolutely nothing to do with it.
When did you get started in sports? How?
I still like to tell this story, but I first got started in sports, period. My father, who once played baseball, he was a catcher, they call him arms. And so the first sport I played was actually baseball. And then of course in primary school I played softball. But when I went to St. Augustine's College, the Big Red Machine, SAC, of course Leviticus Adderley, who everybody know him as Uncle Lou.
Uncle Lou.
Of course he was the principal at that time. And one afternoon he came to me and he said, well, he asked me the question, are you related to Leslie Rusher Cartwright? I said, yes. And he said, see you to practice tomorrow. I have absolutely no idea what he was talking about, but obviously he was talking about volleyball. Now, you know, I'm in grade 7, didn't know that there was a sport named volleyball, but nevertheless I went out, and that's where my volleyball career began with Leviticus Adderley, who taught me just about everything I knew about volleyball at the time. We would play on asphalt surface, obviously, because that was what the surface was back then. And he taught me how to dive, how to roll, flick, set, attack the ball at the net, all of those things that I am personally teaching at this time. Uncle Lou, as I like to call him, he actually taught me how to do all of those things in volleyball.
And volleyball have seemed to be a passion that you stuck around for all these years. Official administrator coach. You're coaching nowadays with the ladies, and you're also coaching one of your daughters, I understand. Talk about sticking around after all these years. What made you stick around with it?
Well, to begin with, I just love teaching. But I must also give credit to, once again, Leviticus Adderley, who said to me that I need to stay in the sport and in order to help the sport grow. But I also vividly remembering having a conversation with my dear cousin, Leslie Rusher Cartwright, and we were discussing the pros and cons of not only coaching, but not coaching the sport of volleyball. And he made a statement to me that remains with me to this very day. He said, Jason, we need more multipliers. At the time, I really didn't have a full understanding of what he was talking about, but what he really was talking about was trying to help the sport grow through coaching. And so I took that up from actually 1 year out of high school when I actually began coaching. I actually coached junior high school at the time, and I fell in love with it. As a matter of fact, I just love coaching on the whole. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna make this a lifelong dream of mine to continue to coach, and hopefully one of these years I'll be coaching my children.
How have you seen the game change over the years, and is it any better from back then to now?
I have seen a whole lot of changes. As a matter of fact, most of the rules that have come into play of late have been around for all of those changes in the rules. Back in our day when we once played, you know, they had what you call side-out volleyball, where you had to serve in order to score a point. Well, when you start your game at 9 p.m. in the night and you don't finish till 2 a.m. in the morning, that's kind of long. And so the International Volleyball Federation, FIVB, as we like to say and call them, they made a determination that volleyball was not TV friendly. And so they came up with new rules and what we call speed rules, rally point. In other words, every time there's a fault, there's a point. And so what that did is that shortened the length of time you play the sport. But what they also did in order to make it more palatable for those of us who play was instead of ending the game at 15, we now go to 25 with only the deciding set, if there is one, ending at 15 points.
Well, we're going to take our first break here with Coach Saunders. And when we come back, let us hear about that Bahama Games experience. Was it a lot of Bengay in the mix as well? We'll be right back.
Congratulations to the happy couple. Divorce is fault-based, so meaning that either the husband or the wife has to be at fault. Yes.
It's not about what your client wants. It's about what your client is entitled to.
Correct. Our society has to take responsibility seriously. We can't allow people to just hop in and hop out.
Marital bliss. They promise to love each other for better or for worse.
A divorce actually takes your dollar and cuts it down to 50 cents. This person was cruel to me, and they did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Exactly, certainly.
That person is automatically going to kick.
After the honeymoon, where do they live? His house or her house?
When you're dealing with property, you usually have two categories of property. You have what's considered to be a matrimonial property, or you have what is considered to be a non-matrimonial property.
On a dissolution of the marriage, the parties are obviously going to go their separate ways. The question is, who is going to move out of the house and who will remain in the house?
Defining what is a matrimonial property and what is a non-matrimonial property, that's where lawyers make most of their money. I'm talking about a full-blown draw-down out fight in court where we've asked for the other side to be thrown out and vice versa.
Children. She has children before the marriage. Should he be made to still maintain that child who's been in the marriage? Or that
Absolutely and unequivocally.
Really?
Agree with you, Alexander. Divorce has to be seen as a child. I give advice and I tell people, I want you to know at the beginning, it is a traumatic event.
For better or for worse. I'm Ramona Farquharson, and this is The Legal.
Talk with the always looking young Jason Saunders, and talking about looking young, you felt young and you went out there and played in the Bahamas games. What was going through your mind to make you want to play in those games, Jason?
Just let me say this first and foremost, right? Another one of my cousin, Craig, Mr. Blockhart, right? When he and I first got started, we made this, what I would say, a call. And the call was a simple call. We are going to play until we reach the age of 60. Now, he didn't play at the age of 60, but I held on to that call that I made. And so I was determined that once I hit the age of 60, I would be able to play, but not only play for playing's sake, but play at a respectable level. And so I did all I could to ensure that that happened. Now, at 60, I didn't play in the local league, but when the opportunity came for me to play in Bahama Games, I jumped on that. I must thank Stephen S. Brown, who is in San Salvador. My mother is a descendant from San Salvador, and he asked me, he said, Jason, do you want to play in the Bahama Games? And I said, why not? You know, at my late age, I still have some skills. Now, my athleticism, if you look at my hairline, you see basically one side is black and the other side is gray. I normally say to people, well, one is my athleticism, that is gone. The black is still my skill set, that is still with me. And so, you know, my son and my daughter both played for Columbus Isles. And so I say, you know what, I'm gonna play with my son. And at age 60, so I decided to play with Columbus Isles. I still have some good serving technique, and as I indicated earlier, to you, I did tie for first in most aces at Bahama Games, so I'm very proud of that.
And you had the opportunity to talk about your son and your daughter. How is it coaching them now?
Easy. They made it so easy for me. Never have an issue with them. I think the most difficult thing for me now, as particularly the coach for my daughter, is that she knows so much about volleyball that sometimes if I make a decision, she's going to say to me, but you know, Daddy, that's not a good call, right? Let's go this way. And then I have to give way to her. And not only her, all of the other young ladies and young men who have coached over the years, I made it a point to teach them everything that I know, but also to have them think about the sport itself, how to think volleyball. And so sometimes you have to give way to them, and I find myself often giving way to them and their viewpoint, and you know, and them making calls on the court as well.
Talking about giving way, Most coaches will give away and don't want to have nothing to do with women's volleyball. You relish in coaching women's volleyball. And how was that experience like?
It has been a wonderful experience coaching female volleyball. Let me just quickly say that Raymond Wilson and we got started doing this together. In 2003, I was made the director for youth under the Bahama Volleyball Federation. And Raymond Wilson was then the treasurer, but both he and I decided that we were going to coach youth volleyball. He decided because his son, Prince Wilson, obviously being a male, that he was going to coach his son, so he decided that, hey, I'm going to coach the men. Well, I had a daughter on this way, so I said, well, I'll coach the female, and from then it just grew. But then too, one of the reasons why I decided to stick with the female had a lot to do with because not too many people wanted to coach females for whatever reason, and some of us know some of those reasons why they would not want to. But I just thought that I had the patience to deal with female, and my wife also played volleyball. So I said, hey, I have a wife who plays volleyball, why not coach females? And so it just stuck with me.
And you've been champion in the Providence Volleyball Association 3 times, that means you must be doing something right.
To be honest with you, not only doing something right, I think for the most part, the young ladies are doing something right because they bought in to what I was selling them. But at the end of the day, you have to do a lot of homework. I've been asked, by the way, to coach female softball as well, and I had to turn that down because it's kind of difficult to put all of your energy into, say, volleyball, for example, which is a very technical sport to coach and to play, and then to do another sport as well. So yeah, that's the reason why I really stuck with it and stuck with female volleyball.
We're talking about female volleyball players. Our Belly player, Ishanette Pierre, one of those up and coming. Let's take a look.
I realized I was a good athlete when my friends in primary school, when they dragged me to the court and was like, let's play volleyball. And I realized that I could play it. So I pursued until I practiced every day. And then I went to a couple clubs and went and got better. So when I found that I was better, I pursued my dream as a volleyball player. There's still some things I have yet to accomplish as a volleyball player. There's still some skill set I have not learned. I get doubted a lot. People be like, you don't know if you're gonna make it there, so why do you still try? And I'm like, I know I can make it because there's a God above, and if he led me through it, he could lead me out of it. It's something my nightclubs does, and I realized that when we high five each other, it's like saying good luck, like do good. Any mistakes for a team, we got it. Playing nightly volleyball is a whole different experience than school volleyball. Nightly volleyball is like, how do I say this? It's like pressure volleyball. If you can't handle pressure, then it's not really for you.
And Ran has the serving duties now. Gets himself an ace, match point Japan!
My favorite celebrity is Ran Takashi. He's a Japanese volleyball player. When I watched him play, it's like, hey, you can be able to do this one day, but with less force, because he's a guy. And he kind of inspired me. Ishanette Pierre is a 17-year-old who strives for her goals and who strives to make everything she do to make sure that she's successful in the future so she could give back to her parents. My mom is deceased, so it's basically my dad. It's hard for a young teenager without a mom, but with a dad figure, it's still hard, but at least he's tried to make everything possible for me. My life goal is to attend college, be a D1 player, D1 volleyball player, and to have a job that I opened up, to have my own work, to be my own sole proprietor, and to give back.
Quite a great player there, Jason. Are you pleased with the level of play now in the country?
To be honest with you, no. And it has a lot to do with, once again, going back to what Leslie Washikako said to me, multipliers. For some reason, we don't have the level of coaching in the school system, outside of the school system, that is required for volleyball to get to that next level. And then too, there's dedication from not only the coaches, but the athletes themselves, the parents, and then in terms of sponsorship, these sports take a lot of money in order to get athletes to the level where a college coach, for example, would want to say, hey, I want to have that young lady or that young man on my school team. But no, I'm not. And here's another reason why I think the level of volleyball, and not only volleyball, if you look at all the sports, there's a deterioration in the level of play. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the coaches in these systems, they just want to win and win at all costs.
Or don't know the game.
Some of them do know the game. I wouldn't say they don't know the game. I just think it has a lot to do with winning. For example, just bump the ball over the net. Just get it on.
You hear that on the game.
Right, exactly. Just get it on, One of the things that we did when my daughter and other young ladies like Brittany Barnaby, for example, you're from Leandra Boxer, who also plays with me. You get Rachel Knowles, all of those young ladies, when they were coming up, the one thing we always said to them, we do not care about winning. Winning will come as a byproduct of the work you put in. So we never focus on winning. As a matter of fact, there were a number of things that we were doing that persons outside of our organization say, why were you doing these things? For example, jump serving, for example. Just about all of the young ladies on my club team jump float. But when we got started doing that, persons were saying to us, why are you doing this? These young girls are too young for this. They did not know that that is where volleyball was actually going. And now you can clearly see, for the most part, our team perhaps is the best serving team in the league. Without a shadow of a doubt, we do have the better servers in the league. But it's things like that. Do not concern yourself about winning was our mantra. Do the right thing. That winning become a byproduct of the work you put in.
And thanks a lot, Jason. We're going to jump into this break and come back.
An all-around busy person, but I'm also a foodie. Bahamian food is a delightful fusion of flavors and techniques passed down, and over time has evolved into unique and delicious meals. It takes simple ingredients and it turns into something special. So if you're a foodie like me and don't like spending all day in the kitchen, but want great food, fast, simple, and tasty, then join me as we dish it up.
We're back here on the timeout with Jason Saunders. And Jason Saunders, we're seeing American football here in the Bahamas go into flag football. We're seeing softball go into slow pitch, just trying to make the game friendlier and faster and more attractive. Volleyball do not attract the fans. What can it do to evolve into the new times?
I don't know if I could agree that volleyball doesn't attract the fans. If you look at local sports in the whole, and you know that I go to all of these games, from the primary school level up to our local leagues, I attend all of them, all of the various disciplines. As a matter of fact, as I had said to one of your colleagues, I've been a major part of the Swimming Federation for many years. So I have that experience as it relates to what the fans look like. I think a number of things play an issue now. The fact is, you got social media, everything is on TV. Back in our days, probably one house in the corner have a TV, so everybody goes out to the gym to watch games. But I think for the most part, a major part of fan support has also to do with the persons who once played the sport. They are not promoting the sport either by their presence, by coming out, or by inviting others to come out. I think that is the major problem. But when you really look at it, most of the fans in any sport come from the school system. Even in the United States, the biggest stadiums are those stadiums that house teams from the various colleges, for the most part. But locally, if you go to any game, whether it be softball, volleyball, basketball, the school system is where the fans are going to be. So we just need to find ways and means of gathering that fan support in the system, perhaps by introducing junior leagues, which we don't have right now, but there's a plan afoot to have junior leagues involved in our local association as well. So we're working on those sort of things, but also to have more younger person participate within our local league as well.
Talking about fan support, the volleyball segment at the Bahamas games was one of the most well attended, and a lot of people didn't feed off that.
You know something, volleyball at that level will always attract fans. Why? Because plenty of people play volleyball. I like to say play with the volleyball, right? But so many people play volleyball because volleyball is such a family sport. Unlike basketball, for example, you can't have your family playing basketball, a big grown man with a small girl on the court, for example. That isn't going to happen. Even with softball, baseball, it's difficult to have a family environment in those sports. But volleyball, however, because of the nature of the game, it could be family. It could be a family event. And so when you see persons having the sort of sport where there's one island against another island, for example, you can have that sort of support.
Oh, I've seen the teams faring because right after the Bahama games, the team ran away. Didn't do as well as we expected. How are our senior level teams faring, and what can we do to improve?
Play. That is one of the things that really hampers not only our senior teams, but our junior teams as well. We need to play in tournaments before the tournament that really counts. And so that coaches and players can get a better grasp as to what the team construct should be. We don't do that. You know, the first time we play as a unit is when we actually travel. Now, while we didn't go do, I should say, as well as we wanted to do, if you really look at the games themselves, we were very close to actually winning that tournament. For example, we played Trinidad and Tobago, for example, and it was a 5-0, right? We made a couple key mistakes down the stretch of the game. Had those mistakes not been made, perhaps we would have won, right? And if we win that game, the other teams that we would have played, we stood a very good chance of beating those teams, right? But you know, sometimes those things happen. But I'm looking back at the games and I do go over the tapes. I think for the most part we did a pretty good job, even though there were some areas that I think me as a coach need to work on as well in terms of some of the decision making that actually took place. But you don't know these things until after the fact, and that's why I said earlier, we need to play tournaments before the tournament in order to see what you have and what you need, the things you need to work on, the things you need to eliminate, but we don't have the opportunities to do so.
A man senior basketball team on the verge of qualifying for the Olympics. If it was one team sport that I thought would have qualified with so many talented players, would have been the volleyball men. What is the future of the sport here in the Bahamas?
Very good. As a matter of fact, we now have a number of athletes in volleyball who are training professionally. But let me hasten to say this though. In terms of beach volleyball, we were one tournament away from making it to the Olympic game in terms of beach volleyball. So in terms of that aspect of beach, that aspect of volleyball, we are pretty close. But it is very difficult, even for our basketball guys, to make it to Olympics, for the bare fact that there's so limited amount of teams that can make it, right? But I'm so happy for our basketball players. They're doing an awesome job. And all the best of them. I know one thing, they're not only representing basketball, they are representing all the team sports that need to do the same things that they are doing. And it has to do too with the funding. You must start with funding. If you get the funding, a number of the athletes who, when they finish college, instead of having to go look for a job, perhaps they could take time out for a couple of years, play internationally, which some of them are now beginning to do. I was just hoping that some of our females would have done it. We had opportunities for at least 3 of them to do it, but they got caught up in their job career. And I say caught up, that's not life. An adequate word to use, but nevertheless, you know, they have to make a living. And so that's part of the problem, I guess, not only for volleyball, but that's part of the problem for all of the major sports.
Jason, you be to government school sports, you be to private school sports, you be to night league basketball, you be to night league volleyball. Some asks, does Jason work? But now we find out you're one of the most important persons in the Bahamas because he's an air traffic controller. He has us in his hand. How is that?
Man, listen, this a long story. This is a long story, right? It all began 1 year after I would have spent a year in COB, College of the Bahamas. Me and a cousin of mine, we applied to the meteorological department for a summer job. But apparently, there was radar in the making for air traffic control, so they were actually hiring air traffic controllers, person to be air traffic controllers. And so I went into the interview and they asked me this question about what I wanted to do with my life, and I said I wanted to be a computer engineer. So they said, well, we do need computer engineers in our organization. So I accepted the offer to become an air traffic controller. And I was supposed to do that for 2 years. Me and a very good friend of mine, I will call his name, Paisy King. He and I were supposed to be there for 2 years. 43 years later, we are still there because we fell in love with the job. And to be honest with you, it's like a match made in heaven for me. I really enjoy air traffic controlling. I enjoy everything there is about it. It has done me good. The fact that I'm able to go to all these very sporting events, that was a direct result of the shift system that we have in air traffic, and the ability for me to work a particular shift that kept me involved in sports and to actually assist not only my children but other people's children as well.
Well, thanks a lot, Jason, for that info right there. You're multi-talented, but you did not tell me the secret to the fountain of youth. Yes, then you're still looking the same. Thanks a lot for coming here, and that's going to do it for another edition of the Timeout. Hope you enjoy.
Health officials announced early on that the coronavirus quantity.
2 and cue. And a fire had erupted at the